Germany and Japan, two nations on opposite sides of the world, yet they share an incredible and unusual connection. Their historic, present and future economies line up remarkably well. Destructive downfalls in the 1940s were followed by huge reconstructions. Now, they're economic titans. Germany stands as the world's third largest economy, while Japan holds the fourth position. Both are export powerhouses, known for their wide industrial sectors churning out cars, electronics and machinery purchased globally. You can see this with almost an identical proportion of GDP by sector. Their population and per capita rankings are also very similar. The Human Development Index scores confirm their status as highly advanced. However, their futures are concerning at best. Inflation has caused their economies to severely underperform in recent years. In addition, they're facing a humongous demographic challenge, aging populations with birth rates among the lowest in the world. A future without a sufficient workforce is one of decline. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Both countries are at the forefront of a technological revolution, which could render these worries irrelevant. But first, to truly grasp the shared current situation, we need to rewind and deeply explore previous threads. Remember, these two weren't always the economic giants we know today. World War II left both Axis nations in ruins. Cities were devastated, industries were shattered, and their economies were on the brink of collapse. The population of Cologne dropped from 750,000 to just 32,000. We can all recall the devastating fate of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but from the ashes of war rose two phoenixes. Germany experienced its Wirtschaftswunder, or economic miracle, a period of rapid reconstruction and growth fueled by industrial expansion and a booming export market. Across the globe, Japan mirrored this trajectory, undergoing a similar economic resurgence. Now, let's not forget the helping hand from the United States. The Marshall Plan, a transfer of about $150 billion in today's money, coupled with strategic interests in bolstering these economies as bulwarks against communism, played a crucial role in their revival. Fast forward to the 1980s, and both nations were riding high. Their industries were at their peak, leading the world in technological advancements. Japan, in particular, benefited the most from the hyper-capitalist policies inherited from the United States. They were doing so well, in fact, that they were predicted to overtake the US during the 1990s. This decade, however, went as bad as it could possibly go. A huge asset bubble burst in Japan. The Tokyo Stock Exchange fell 50% in a single year, sending the economy into a period of stagnation that it is still grappling with today. Germany, too, was undergoing a huge period of transition. There were huge economic challenges with reunification. East Germany, under Soviet rule, was a centrally planned economy with outdated infrastructure and inefficient industries. West Germany, on the other hand, was a capitalist powerhouse with a modern, competitive market. Bringing these two contrasting systems together was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So, unemployment soared as inefficient East German industries struggled to compete. As the world changed, so did their economies. The 2000s saw both nations recovering from a tumultuous decade by shifting gears towards services, comprising just under 70% of total GDP. Industry still remains a large part, however, around 30%. For comparison, industry in the US only makes up 20% of GDP. So why is this? Well, Japan and Germany have remained heavily oriented towards exports in finished, manufactured goods. They are only behind the powerhouses of China and the US in global export rankings. Germany exported a whopping $2 trillion worth last year, comprising almost 50% of their entire GDP. 17% of these exports are vehicles. Think BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and so on. 16% is machinery, including computers, and 11% is electrical equipment. Siemens is the largest industrial machinery company in the world. Interestingly, Japan has the exact same top 3 export list as Germany. While their cars are driven by a similar wide array of brands such as Toyota, Honda, and Nissan, their machinery exports are more high-tech. For example, 5% of all exports are integrated circuits, which are used for most technological devices around the world. They also boast some of the largest tech corporations like Sony, Panasonic, and Nintendo. Where they slightly differ is who they sell their products to. Germany is more heavily involved with the European market. 53% of their exports go to countries in the EU. For Japan, their trade is split across all of Asia, Europe, and the US. So these nations are clearly far ahead of most and have seen relatively stable growth over the last 2 decades thanks to their diversified economies. So what's all the worry about? Well, Signs of vulnerabilities have emerged for both in recent years. A key problem has been inflation. Russia's invasion of Ukraine proved disastrous for Germany, as the success of their manufacturing sector relied on cheap Russian gas imports. Sanctions imposed on Russia wrought havoc in Germany. Russia reduced the supply of gas to Europe, massively increasing its price level. This resulted in a huge inflationary spiral, reaching a peak of 8.8%. To combat this, interest rates were increased, which essentially slowed the economy down. Despite inflation calming to previous levels, GDP growth suffered. Germany was the worst performing major economy in the world last year, entering a recession. Now, the future of German industry is hanging in the balance. A survey by the German Chamber of Commerce and Industry found that 43% of large industrial companies were planning to relocate their operations outside of Germany, with the US being the top destination. This is simply because energy is still so much cheaper in the US. Germany is slowly losing its global advantages, which does not bode well for their future. Then you look at Japan. Somehow, even without the direct impact of nearby war, they have performed worse than Germany. A few years ago, they had the third largest economy, but Germany, with all their struggles, overtook them. Japan slipped into negative growth at the end of last year. Again, this was caused by inflation, which was a result of a weak yen currency combined with years of negative interest rates, along with expensive import costs. They recently hiked their interest rate, the first time they had done so in 17 years. It was originally kept this low to make it cheaper for the average person to spend money rather than keep it in a bank, which would theoretically boost the economy. However, this has resulted in sticky inflation, which has effectively made people poorer, stopping them from spending as much. But is this just a short-term problem? Does it truly impact their future? On the one hand, it could just be part of the continuous economic cycle of peaks and troughs. On the other, Japan has been in relative decline ever since the 90s. The little hope they have of remaining an economic powerhouse is fizzling out. The same can be said for Germany, who, as previously mentioned, is losing its industrial dominance. But another huge problem, one that undoubtedly threatens the future of each country, is demographic decline. The birth rates are extremely low. The amount of children needed to be born for a country to maintain its population is 2.1 per woman. In Germany, this figure is 1.5, and in Japan, it is 1.3. This puts them both in the bottom 30 countries worldwide. So, the population is getting smaller and older. The median age is 50 in Japan and 45 in Germany. This has an incredibly worrying impact when looking ahead. Firstly, there will soon be more people retiring than working. This lack of labour could bring the economy to a halt. It also puts a huge strain on healthcare systems, overwhelmed by the amount of elderly care. Fewer young taxpayers means less funding into this healthcare. An older population also means less innovation. These countries will literally start to contract. It is estimated that by 2050, 43% of Japan's 1,727 municipalities are likely to disappear. That means widespread ghost towns, economic dead zones, and chronic poverty. In Germany, deaths have outnumbered births in every single year since 1972, but they have counteracted this with high immigration. They have imported millions of young people, particularly from countries like Turkey, Poland, and Russia, to keep the workforce going. As a result, 40% of children in Germany have migrant backgrounds. In Japan, the approach is slightly different. Immigration is stricter, so they don't have the benefit of mass imported labour. To replace the estimated 11 million worker shortage by 2040, they are spearheading the revolution of artificial intelligence and robotics, along with the US. The market size for AI in Japan is expected to increase by an average yearly rate of 28%, resulting in a market volume of $36 billion by 2030. When these models become capable and reliable enough, Japan aims to implement them in every sector. Industrial robots are being developed for a declining construction sector. Self-driving vehicles will revive the trucking industry, and customer service avatars will fill up retail stores. Europe will also inevitably lead this future. The IMF ranked Germany third worldwide for its readiness in the implementation of artificial intelligence. If all goes well, this technology will be the ultimate solution to the impending demographic crisis. This, of course, will not just be limited to these two countries, but the entire world. The difference, though, is that Japan and Germany will breathe a heavy sigh of relief when they feel the benefits of near limitless intelligence and labour. These countries have tread almost identical paths over the last century. They stand on similar pedestals in the present and carry the same fears going into the near future. But if they continue to learn and adapt to the constantly evolving world, their future will begin to look less worrying and more promising. Thank you for watching.